I remember the day everything changed. Not because the sun shone any differently, or because the air smelled of prophecy. No, it was an ordinary day. Dust on the street, tools on my bench, the steady rhythm of a life I thought I understood. And then Mary's father sent word that she wished to speak with me privately. We were already promised to one another. I had imagined our future more times than I could count. Not a grand future, not a wealthy one, just a peaceful life, a home of our own. The sound of Mary's laughter in the mornings, children running through the doorway, a wife whose presence softened the edges of the world. I walked to her house expecting something small, a question about our home, or maybe a shy comment about our upcoming marriage. But she looked different. Her eyes were swollen, as if she had cried, and then tried to hide it. Her hands trembled in her sleeves. She didn't step toward me. She kept her distance like someone guarding a wound, and before she even spoke, something in me tightened. "Joseph," she said softly, and the sound of my name broke something in my chest. I am with child." The world stopped. I could hear the marketplace outside. I could hear people laughing on the street. I could hear my own heartbeat pounding like a hammer inside my skull. But inside that moment, the world fell silent. I had known Mary almost my whole life. I knew her purity, her humility, her honesty. But I also knew the laws. I knew what this meant. I felt shame crashing through me. Not my own shame, but the shame that would fall on her family, on everything we had planned. I tried to ask whose child it was, but the words tasted like ash. She met my eyes without flinching. "No man's," she said. Then she told me about the angel. She spoke of a messenger from the Lord, of the Holy Spirit overshadowing her, of a child conceived without the touch of a man. She spoke these things with trembling voice, but unwavering conviction. I wanted to believe her, but the story was too big, too holy, too impossible to fit inside a carpenter's mind. I left without accusing her. I didn't shout. I didn't call her a liar. I just walked home, every step heavier than the last, trying to understand how the girl I loved could speak words that shattered every law of nature. That whole night I lay awake. I could not eat. I could not pray. I could not make peace with the idea of marrying her, nor with the thought of condemning her. I decided finally that I would not expose her to judgment. I would release her quietly. It felt like the only righteous thing I could do. And then I slept. I do not know how to explain what happened next except to say that my sleep was torn open. It wasn't a dream the way other dreams come. It was more real than waking, more solid than the wood beneath my palms. A voice spoke before I even saw the presence behind it. "Joseph, son of David." I froze. It had been years since anyone called me by my lineage. And then I saw him, the angel, not soft, not gentle, a being of impossible brightness, as if the very air around him bowed in surrender. "Do not be afraid," he said, "to take Mary as your wife. The child within her is from the Holy Spirit. She will bear a son, and you will call his name Yeshua, for he will save his people from their sins." There was no arguing with a voice like that, no denying a presence that cut through every fear I had like a blade of light. I woke with the words still burning in my mind. I knew what I had to do. I went to Mary. She watched my face like someone waiting for the blow that would decide her fate. And I told her everything, every word the angel had spoken, every fear I had laid down. Her tears fell, but her shoulders eased. I stood beside her, not as a man betrayed, but as a man chosen. We married soon after, quietly, without celebration, without the usual music or dancing, but with a peace I cannot explain. And yet, even knowing the truth, I still heard the whispers. People always think they are subtle. They are not. I heard the murmured questions in the market. I heard men calculating months under their breath. I felt their curiosity burning holes in my back. But we walked through it together, Mary and I, carrying a secret that was not ours to hide or reveal, a secret God himself had placed in our keeping. The months passed. Mary grew heavier. She had moments of joy so intense they frightened me, and moments of fear that haunted her sleep. Some nights she clung to me, trembling from dreams she wouldn't fully describe, dreams of light, of battles unseen, of a child who would change the world. And then came Caesar's decree. Bethlehem. I stared at that announcement, knowing what it would mean for us. How could Mary travel in her condition? How could I leave her behind? But the law was the law, and obedience was woven into my bones. So we left, slowly, painfully. Day after day of walking, Mary shifting her weight, fighting through waves of discomfort. My heart twisted every time she flinched. She tried to stay cheerful, but I saw the exhaustion stealing color from her cheeks. I kept telling myself that when we reached Bethlehem, at least we would have a place to rest. I was wrong. Every door we knocked on, every house we approached, every person we begged. No room. Not even a corner. Not a mat. Not a rooftop. Nothing. And Mary's face grew paler with every refusal. By the time we reached that last inn, she could barely stand. I tried to hide the fear in my eyes, but the innkeeper saw it. He shook his head at first, but something in his expression softened. "There is a stable," he said. "It is all I have." I felt the words strike me like stones. A stable. For her, for him. But it was shelter, and I would take anything the Lord placed before us. The stable was cold, damp. The animals shifted in the shadows. I laid blankets on the hay, my hands moving faster than my thoughts, trying to prepare a place for a miracle to enter the world. Mary labored bravely. The pain racked through her in waves, each one heavier than the last. I held her hand, wiped her brow, whispered encouragement. I barely believed myself. I had never delivered a child before, not even close, and then he came. I don't have the words for that moment. The world felt like it held its breath. I looked at him in my arms, tiny, red, helpless, and my knees nearly gave way. This child, whose name I had been commanded to speak. This child whose life would divide history. This child whose first breath sounded no different from any other baby's, and yet carried eternity in it. I wrapped him as best I could, Mary cried softly, touching his face. We laid him in the manger, a feeding trough cleaned by trembling hands. And just when I thought the night had exhausted all its wonders, the shepherds arrived. Bursts of excitement, breathless words, stories of angels filling the sky with light. They found him exactly as the angels said, a baby wrapped in cloths, lying in a manger. They knelt. These rugged men, calloused and weary, bowed in the straw with tears in their eyes, and in that moment, I understood why God had chosen this path, why the King of Kings entered in poverty instead of splendor. And then those shepherds would never have been welcomed into a palace. But a stable? A stable was for everyone. The days that followed were quiet in some ways, overwhelming in others. I learned how to hold him, how to soothe his cries, how to steady myself when the reality struck me all over again. The Messiah was sleeping in my arms, depending on my strength, watching me with eyes that seemed to see more than an infant should. I often wondered why God chose me. I am not a scholar. I am not a warrior. I am not a man of influence. I am a carpenter, a simple man, but perhaps that is why he chose me. Obedience comes easier to men who do not pretend to understand everything. My song is not sung aloud. My praise is not the kind that shakes rooms. It is quieter. It is the steady rhythm of saying yes, even when I am afraid. It is the way I show up, the way I protect, the way I trust what I cannot see. I may never be remembered with trumpets or scrolls. People will speak of Mary. They will speak of shepherds and angels and wise men. They will speak of Yeshua most of all. But I will remain in the background, building, holding, guiding. And that is enough for me. Because in the quiet spaces of my life, in the sound of a saw against wood, in the soft weight of him sleeping on my chest, in the glow of Mary's smile as she watches us, my silent song rises to the one who hears even what is unspoken. I am Joseph. I am not the father of this child by blood, but I am his by calling, and I will raise him with everything I have. This is my story. This is my offering. This is my silent song. Thank you for listening to my Christmas story. If it moved you, helped you reflect, or gave you something to carry with you, don't forget to like, subscribe, and tap the notification bell, so you don't miss the next story in this Christmas POV series. More is coming, and every voice holds a piece of the night that changed the world. God bless. I